I'm just trying to think of a tagline that we can use. What's growing on? What's growing on? How's it growing? So how's it growing, everyone?
Hi guys, what we have here is native Australian Stingless Bees. They're really happy here on our deck. You can have them on your veranda. They have no stinger on them, so it means you can't get stung by them, and they're all around very nice to have.
Today we're going to talk about native bees. So these are stingless bees. They're called stingless bees because they don't have a stinger. They're also native bees. They're found around different countries of the world. They're a beautiful little bee. They can't harm you, they can't bite you, and they do produce honey. We're in Sydney and we have this beehive on our balcony here, and I'm by no means an expert on the bees. There are some great resources online if you want to check out Australian native bees. You can find out all about them and where to get yourself a hive and all the different conditions and different sort of attributes of native bees. So these bees behind me, there's somewhere about 10,000 bees in this colony here. And the bees, as you can see, are very small. They're about the size of a small little bush fly. And they're all flying in and out past my face at the moment as I'm sitting here on the couch outside on the deck, and it's causing no harm at all. They don't try to attack you like flies. They're just a beautiful little insect. And they're really fascinating to sit here and watch them as they come and go from their hive. If you watch the hive here for long enough, you'll see some bees returning with little pollen balls on their hind legs. Sometimes there's glistening bits of resin. Sometimes there's little white bits of pollen. Sometimes it's orange. It's really interesting. The other thing that they do is they clean out their nest. So inside their hive, they bring out little pieces of waste product. But just be aware that the climatic conditions are really important for these bees. So if you're considering getting a beehive yourself, here's what you need to know. So these are a subtropical / tropical species of bee. So their natural range is sort of down from Queensland down to about almost to the Victorian border on the coast, but you won't find them inland. So they like that sort of warm subtropical environment and those beautiful sort of coastal conditions. This one is called Tetragonula carbonara, and it's the most commonly kept species of bee, of native stingless bee in Australia. The honey that they produce is beautiful, as opposed to the honey from, say, a European bee. The difference in production is massive. As you can see, this hive is quite small, and we're lucky to harvest 1/2 kilo to maybe 1 kilo of honey per year per hive, whereas a European honeybee could perhaps get 100 kilos, or in perfect conditions, maybe even 200 kilos per colony or per hive. So a very, very big difference, but the honey is absolutely beautiful, as Fraser and Angus are going to show you guys.
Okay, so we have the honey. The reason there's not much in here is because my dad always gives it to the guests that are interested in the bees or mention the bees in any way. So, he's telling me to try it, so I'm gonna try it. Okay. It's nice because it's kind of vinegary, but
Yeah, very fruity, and
I didn't even have it.
I did. Very fruity,
Very
and
vinegary.
very kind of feels like the texture to like vinegar.
No, it
but
tastes like
tastes like a bit like vinegar, not really. It's more fruity and honey. It's very nice. It would be good to have on toast or fruit or something.
Finish this off. No, Luna, I know you want to be in the video, but you have to contain yourself.
It's a really beautiful honey, and one of the reasons why it's different to regular European bee honey is because European bees keep their honey in a wax pot, whereas the stingless bees keep it in a wax pot that's also blended in with pollen and propolis, which, if I'm saying that correctly, sort of think of it in terms of like an oaked barrel, or a barrel where you're keeping your Chardonnay or something like that, but it's been used for something else so that the flavours permeate the liquid inside. So that's why the flavour of stingless bee honey is so floral and more acidic than a straight honey. It's not really super sweet. Well, it is sweet, but it's thinner in texture, and it's absolutely beautiful and fragrant and floral.
I really like it, like not just for the video, but like who could actually have this? It's really nice.
Do you think it's better if you eat it by itself?
Yeah. I know that you put it on like crackers and like give it to the guests, but I reckon it's better on its own.
The hives also, you've got to be careful if you have a hive. Unfortunately, people steal them. They are worth a fair bit of money, so that's something to be wary of. But a fantastic hobby and something well worth getting into, and it's given us a lot of enjoyment sitting out here looking at our hive. So once a year, as a rule of thumb, as very much a general rule of thumb, once a year you can split your hive. So we split this hive about 6 months ago. So we're letting it build up in numbers, and then we might split it again in another 6 months in spring. What splitting means is in here, we can crack open the hive, there's a seam here, and then half of the brood inside and half of the honey pots can be transferred into another hive, and in the right conditions, that will then populate itself, and this one will as well. So each hive has one queen only, but once you split the hive, they can re-queen the other hive, to put it simply. So you can end up doubling your hives, in theory, every year. And then you have the choice as well if you want to remove some honey. And this top section up here is called a honey super. We really shouldn't split the hive and take honey in the same year, because that's taking too much of the stores for the bees. But that's basically the idea. So we've got 2 hives, we've got this one, and we've got another one in the garden that was the result of the split that we did 6 months ago. Now we're going into winter, so we've got to make sure that our hives don't get really cold. They're not in a really exposed area. So out here on our deck, it might get to about 7 degrees maybe, at the coldest point of winter, at the coldest night. And that's okay as long as they've got some insulation. So a lot of people put foam boxes around them and so forth. So that's basically the rundown of our native bees. It's a fantastic hobby. The honey is beautiful. I can't wait to harvest a good amount of honey this year. We just took a little sampler the last time we split it, so we're looking forward to getting some beautiful honey and just adding to the produce that we can get from our own garden. So it's actually very exciting and a great hobby, and I highly recommend it to anybody who is interested.